Why do researchers struggle to influence product strategy and product leadership? We're going to get into that next. Hey, everybody, Tim Sweeney coming to you from Austin, Texas. I run into a lot of researchers, whether market researchers, UX researchers, etc. Most of them want to drive strategy more than they actually do. And why not? They have the perfect skill set to do so. So, why aren't they? If we go back 20 years or so ago, it was industry standard to deliver white papers. Great content, but few people actually took the time to read through these documents. And they were often laden in theory and academic derived language, leaving the reader to interpret how to apply insights in their specific context. Most of these papers, unfortunately, were shelved shortly after delivery. Fast forward to today, and we see an overcorrection in the other direction. We all know attention spans are shorter, so the industry responded by producing TLDRs for key decision makers, and an attempt to close that application gap focused on actionable insights. Great in principle, but this often oversimplifies outputs down to directives for different functional teams. As a result, you wind up with insights from the point of view of the asker, not the end user or the customer. This type of output constrains solutioning because the challenges have been defined too narrowly. And finally, we're seeing the industry organize fielding events for teams to observe and even interact with customers or users. Great in theory again, but most of these turn into boondoggle events. Behind two-way mirrors, you'll often see laptops open, people working on their day jobs. These events often lack a reason for engagement or collaboration besides, hey, what did you hear that was interesting? So now we can see how these behaviors set expectations for the research function and devalue its role. But it's not just the research function at fault here. Leadership can sometimes bring flawed assumptions or prompts to the research function, or they may not bring a measurable question or hypothesis to the table. And to make matters worse, they may not be inviting the research function into early conversations where these issues could be resolved. Okay, this should give you enough context as to why the research function struggles to influence strategy. So what can be done about it? Well, first you have to give leadership a reason to engage you in open-ended generative thinking. To do this, you'll need to be able to articulate the value of discussing both personal and product goals and concerns. Your primary value to them at this point is going to be synthesizing product data into hypotheses to invest further in. Ultimately, they need to see you as someone that can advance their personal and product goals and make them look good. Second, understand what your leader believes are attributes of valid insight. You might find out that they don't trust any insight that isn't supported by an incredibly large sample size. At least you know what you're up against. You might need to spend some time teaching them about sample and representation. You might need to adjust your approach. For example, go smaller on qualitative sample and then follow that up with a quantitative effort to validate those insights. Either way, you need to meet the leader where they're at. Third, your research approach should reframe the product or organizational challenge from the perspective of the end user or the customer. You can do this by anchoring insights to the experience of the user or customer and then highlighting the role or impact your product or competing products have in that journey. This will do a couple of really important things for you. A, it changes the perspective at the top. Leaders often come to realize that their personal assumptions are flawed and will start to consider a new set of strategic options. You want to be seen as a person that helped them identify a strategic direction that's more viable. B, it opens the solutioning sandbox. By focusing less on explicit direction and more on end user or customer goals and challenges, you'll enable functional teams to determine how they might best achieve those goals or address those barriers. C, it generates more influence. Leaders can't ignore the voice of a customer or end user, but they can certainly ignore yours. You should be seen as the voice of the customer in your group. 4, lead the exploration pathway. Your research outputs should highlight insights that were uncovered that require further investigation. Don't wait for leadership to place a research order with you. You're not a fast food order taker. You should be proactively suggesting what the group should be exploring next and why that's important or critical to the product or business. Lastly, number 5, change your outputs. The same output isn't going to work for every stakeholder. You should be producing outputs that plug into and enable each of the specific roles that you support. I recommend 3 types of outputs. A higher level view of the customer or end user experience and how the product shows up and competing products show up in that experience. B, for engineers, designers, etc., they need an output that gives them metrics to generate and evaluate concepts by. And then C, for the overall team, you need to identify the types of decisions that should be made collectively and then facilitate a workshop using the insights to drive those decisions. This will put you in a position of great influence. Fortunately or unfortunately, these are the tasks modern innovation leaders need to take on in order to be successful. Let me know if you have any tricks for driving strategy. I'd love to hear them in the comments.